Now we're recording. So hello everyone. My name is Kayla Strong and I'm here with Carl Buchheit. And he is the founder of Transformational NLP and the co-founder of the amazing NLP Marin. And today we're going to be talking about rapport. And in our emails and when we talk about rapport, we usually use the word alignment, but in NLP Marin, we use the word rapport. So we wanted to talk to you today, Carl, about what is rapport.
Hi, Kayla. Nice to see you. Rapport is, well, I could answer that in a really easy way. Rapport is everything. If human beings are going to have a productive time with each other or enjoy each other's company or move anything along, there has to be a foundational sense of just like really basic safety. So in regular English, rapport is a condition of like there's that word alignment or smoothness but when we're working in NLP land doing change work, revising patterns that create behavior and beliefs and really intense things like that, it's incredibly important that there be this basic safety thing. So for us, a condition of rapport is not necessarily a condition of friendliness or likability, although that almost automatically comes along. It's a condition in which there's some way that we can communicate to the person that we're working with, or that they can communicate to the people they're working with, or they can communicate to the people who are around their dinner table, that things are okay, that things are safe. And this is accomplished. There's a human level of it, but there's also a creature level of it, a critter brain level of it, because that's part of being human.
Beautiful. Thank you. So rapport is about alignment, but also about safety. Sounds like.
Yeah. Yes.
And, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, when the safety is there, the alignment becomes much more easy to presuppose and just to enjoy without having to pay a lot of attention to it. It's not something that we want people to have to pay conscious attention to. Although when we begin to teach it, we ask people to pay conscious attention to it.
So that actually leads us into the next question. What you were just saying is when someone has rapport and we're, teaching rapport in our NLP classes, what does rapport make possible?
Well, I think I'm going to sound the way I did in the previous question. Like it makes everything. Without it, it's really difficult to experience anything good or useful. And with it, everything becomes much more easy. There's a level for humans where they just want to know that they're okay with the other people, and the other people are okay, and the other people are wondering, am I okay with you? And so rapport is an experience of ease or facility, but that's kind of a clunky word. It's an experience of connection that doesn't necessarily have any content. So an analogy we use is two radio towers, and there's a signal that's being broadcast. And if somebody on this radio tower on this side presses down on their microphone button, it makes a carrier wave happen. And that carrier wave is the connection between the 2 points. It's the possibility for the transfer of the information or the experience, right? Rapport is kind of the carrier wave, even before there's any content. It lets the connection occur so that the content can come across as best it can. And it doesn't make really awful content better. It just makes the experience of it more enjoyable, and it makes really wonderful exchange just like completely marvelous. And when we get familiar with the experience, we really miss it. And there are people with whom we have natural rapport. And then there are people with whom we don't have so much natural rapport. So the point of being able to work with rapport is to introduce it from choice, introduce it because we care to, introduce it because we care. And and just be able to have it happen on purpose.
Thank you. And so it's a little bit deeper than, it's a little bit deeper than you like blue, I like blue too. Yeah.
Although that never hurts, except for people who don't like blue, in which case you're in trouble.
In which case you got to work with a little bit more rapport.
You got to work with a little bit more, like, yeah. Cancel all of that.
Okay, so our next question is, so what are some of the technical aspects that go into creating rapport? And also, what are some of the energetic aspects that go into creating rapport?
The really interesting thing about the creation and the adjustment, the increase or maybe decrease of rapport, is it's such an organic experience. I mean, it's human, it's our feelings, it's our senses of connection or alignment and misalignment, but then realignment and all of that. But what facilitates it is something almost mechanical. So we'll talk about the mechanical part first. The founders of NLP, way back, one of the things that they were observing was that there were certain people who did communication work and change work at all kinds of levels, psychotherapy and high level education, and the super high level education called, primary school, in terms of the challenge to the teachers. And anyone, and then they had some salespeople and they had some people, anyway, there were some people who were just naturally gifted with this connection thing, and other people who weren't, but there was no obvious reason why they wouldn't be, because they were really fine people and they were tremendously good at what they did. And over time, they just started observing those original people back in the 70s, that there were some physical things that were going on for starts, right? If you watch, so the simple way to illustrate it is, if you look at a couple sitting at a table in a restaurant who are in the process of falling in love, they're doing certain physical things and they're just happening spontaneously because that's what happens. And you can kind of just picture that they're like that. And then if we look at the other table over here, and this is a couple that is divorcing, and they're taking one last try to work out their settlement before they have to start spending money on lawyers, and they don't look like these people over here. So what these founders thought is, well, there's a condition of rapport, just like this hyper rapport in my example here, right? But there's a condition of rapport and there's certain physical things going on. Over here, there's not rapport and there are not these physical things going on. What if we just take the physical things and try them out all by themselves, regardless of the condition that these people are falling in love and these people are trying to avoid hiring a lawyer? Let's just try that out and see what happens. And it's quite remarkable when humans experience themselves in a mirror. There's something in us that relaxes, and that doesn't seem like it should be sensible. It should be based on other things, and it is based on a lot of other things. But when that mirroring function happens, there is some part of our quite ancient neurology that just goes, oh. There's a question that we offer as an illustration of how the creature brain is working about these things. Creature brain doesn't have a voice. It doesn't have a mind, a human mind. It doesn't have, words. But if it did, it would ask one question, and that question would be, am I with like kind? So if you're an antelope out on the savannah, it's an important question. Am I hanging with the antelopes? Or, So when when this part of us, way, way outside of conscious attention, can answer the question, I am with like kind, it goes, that's just the very beginning of it. And then there's a human component to it, which is a very different question. And the way I like to phrase that is, well, the creature question is, am I with like kind? And the human question is, do I like the kind I'm with? Which is a whole different deal. But it's really easier to get a yes on the second question if we've got a yes on the first one also.
Wow, thank you. I get so curious because it's like now I'm understanding also that it's not necessarily always about the content, like taking just the body language. There's not really any content going on there. And that's answering that first question that you're talking about. And then the second question is a little bit more about the content.
Yeah. And the second question is really important. But one of the fun things that happens when we're introducing this material is we ask people, to find a partner and find some topic about which they agree tremendously. And then we ask them not to do any of the rapport basics that they've just been learning a little earlier in the weekend. And so they have content matching, but they don't have the going on. And then we flip it so that they do lots of rapport, but they find some topic they can disagree about or pretend to disagree about because they're not that cranked up about it, but it's for learning. And everyone much more enjoys the disagreement with the carrier than the agreement with the, what, who are you? How am I in relation to you? What, So it's really basic stuff for humans. And there are people who are naturally gifted with this. This is one of those things that they observed. The people who are naturally gifted were just doing this. They thought, let's try it. Let's put it somewhere else and see if it works there. So it's learnable and teachable. And it is, and it's a bit of it's an art form, but you don't have to be a world-class artist to really have it make a difference. Just a little bit goes a long way, actually.
Thank you. And I feel like you shared an example or an analogy with the antelope. I would love to hear even a little bit more, or an example that you have with a client, either one, that rapport really made the difference.
This is a really interesting question to ask someone who's been doing this stuff as long as I have, because almost all of this, I no longer pay that much conscious attention to it. It's all just sort of baked in. And I don't know what kind of massively disagreeable and unpleasant person I must have been before this got to be sort of automatic for me. But I imagine that was really awful for everybody. Where I now notice it is I'm working with a client and I'm about to ask them to do something that's difficult, that will involve some experience that doesn't register as being really wonderful. Shall I just understate it? And right then in that moment, I'll add in on purpose an extra helping, and I'll be doing that consciously and kind of precisely, and just sort of putting in just the right amount so that it will be much easier for that person to stay with me while we do this next part, so that we can come out at a better place in a few minutes. This is where my attention goes to it. People who are just learning it are paying a lot of conscious attention, and it's it's called the technology of rapport, which is sort of oxymoronic. And one of the early stages of learning is as one learns to work with it, it's like do all this stuff on purpose and act natural at the same time, and at the beginning, we don't ask people to please feel like themselves or act natural. Just try this out and notice the response it elicits in other people. And everyone kind of goes, wow, that's quite remarkable. And then after that, one just wants to, it's something we offer to each other. It's an offer of a more easeful connection and more safety. And it's really hard to disagree with the usefulness of that.
Thank you, Carl.
Except if you're getting divorced, in which case probably don't want to start it up, because then you have to go rethink the whole process.
Yeah. Well, this is a little side question that I'm just curious about. Is there any times that you, maybe not in a session or just in life, that you tend to naturally have rapport and then you break rapport?
The answer is yes, called anti-rapport. If you're trying to get to be polite and considerate, but still get the last guests to leave the party if you have to start cleaning up, because it's, you know, getting to be in the early morning, early hours of the AM. Yeah, you can just run a little tiny bit of anti-rapport. There's no violation. There is no sudden shift. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, time to go. Thank you very much for a lovely evening. Oh, you're so welcome. And that's true, they are. But and rather than saying, hey.
Yeah, it's a little bit more polite.
Yeah.
And that leads us to our last question, which is, what is one thing a listener could do to bring in more rapport to their next conversation?
You know what a place to start is to, because it's not just about using the body, it's about using tone of voice, it's about using volume sometimes, it's about using some words. But the simplest thing is to just kind of be with the other person and breathe kind of at the same rate that they are. This is really, you know, it's no one ever says, oh my goodness, I notice you're breathing. Are you trying to run that mind control stuff on me by breathing? No, most of us take it for granted that the other person will be breathing. If you breathe at the same rate as someone else, it's an extraordinarily subtle communication to their system, their human and their creature, and at some level their spirit too, that you and they belong together. And if you're doing some really difficult or elegant or challenging work of some kind, really, really useful. If you're just trying to communicate that it's really time to repair the fence, still really, really useful.
Well, thank you so much, Carl, for your time and these beautiful answers and explaining to us a little bit more about rapport. And I'm excited for some of our other videos. We're going to be talking about the creature brain that you were talking about.
Oh, the creature brain, yes.
Yeah, and the different brains. So we look forward to seeing you all.
Stay tuned. Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah, thank you.